something to talk about. I'm Linda McNamee, and for the next hour, we are going to talk to two wonderful women who will hopefully become unemployed soon because they will no longer need their organization that we are going to talk about. But October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and we are going to be talking about that soon. But before we begin, I would like to invite you to give our wonderful guests, whom you will meet momentarily, feel free to give us a call at 781-270-9199, or you can always email me at talk@bcattv.org if you have a suggestion for a future topic. And as usual, I would like to thank the crew for this evening. We have Chris Flaherty, who's a staff member here, who makes sure that us volunteers keep the place running and don't totally destroy the place. We have Colleen Moore, Stephanie Floridas, and Jolie Atwood, who wonderfully, kindly give up their Wednesday evenings to come and help me out here. And last but definitely not least, I want to thank my husband Paul for staying home for Daddy Date Night. Hope the math homework isn't too challenging this evening. Next, the moment we've all been waiting for, I would like to introduce my wonderful guests for this evening, Savitha Rajiv.
Yeah.
I checked with your first name, but I forgot to check with your last name, how to pronounce
Mm-hmm.
it. And Nadia Madden, who are co-executive directors at Saheli.
That's right.
You say it better.
At Saheli.
Saheli Boston.
Yes.
Okay. Well, welcome.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you
And
for having us.
I know you mentioned before the show that you are fairly new at the position, but I really hope that sometime in my lifetime, we no longer need domestic violence awareness because the problem will be solved.
Right.
Probably won't happen, but one can hope.
Yes,
So thank you for joining me for this evening.
absolutely.
To start out, I would like our guests to, or like our viewers, to get to know you a little bit better. Can you tell me a little bit about yourselves, how you came to this area, the Burlington area, and how you became involved in Saheli?
Sure. I grew up in a city called Bangalore back home in India. It's a city south of India. I was born and raised over there. I got my bachelor's degree in computer science from the Bangalore University. And then I got married, had a typical arranged marriage.
Ooh,
Yeah.
okay.
I did not know my husband.
wow.
So the parents arranged. He was actually over here at Bentley doing his MBA program.
Okay.
So I saw him once for like 20 minutes, and then
Wow.
family agreed. And then I saw him the next time a year and a half later, 4 days before my wedding.
Wow.
So yeah, it was interesting. Got married and came to the US in 1993.
Okay.
And then I
Is that because he was over here already?
he was
or-
over here,
okay.
so I came to join him. I did my master's at Tufts University over here. So I've been in the Boston area the whole time since
Okay.
then. I joined the IT sector. I was working for companies like HP and Progress for about for over a decade. I was in the
Wow.
industry, and then when my kids came along, I have two boys,
Okay.
Rohit and Suraj. One is 19; he's now a sophomore in college,
Wow.
and Suraj is 14, and he's a freshman in high school.
Oh, okay.
So when they came along, priorities changed. Family took priority.
As they do.
So I put my career on hold, thinking I was going to do that for a couple of years, maybe.
Once the kids are in school, go
Eh,
back.
yeah.
I'm at that stage right now.
But when I was home, and I had never been home before, I was looking for things to challenge my kids as well as something to get involved in. So I found this nonprofit organization called North South Foundation.
Okay.
And NSF they conduct educational bees across the country. We have about 87 chapters, like
Okay.
Math Bee, Geography Bee, Science Bee, and stuff.
okay.
And they raise those funds to provide scholarships to poor kids in India so that they can go to
cool.
college and
Okay.
better their lives. So when I got involved with NSF, I realized how rewarding it was to work for a nonprofit organization, to give back to the community, especially back home, that gave me so much. So I gave up my career and decided to focus on nonprofit. So
get a new career.
Absolutely, So when the opportunity to work at Saheli came along, it was a fairly smooth and easy transition. And I love what I do at Saheli, working with Nadia. I know we just started a little over a month ago now, but I was volunteering in August, and then we started in September.
Wow.
But it looks like we've been with the organization for quite a while. So I live now in Westford with my husband and the 2 boys.
Great. Thank you for joining us. Now, Nadia, it's your turn.
Sure. Well, I grew up actually down the street from Saheli. I grew up in Bedford. When my family was first here, there was actually very few South Asians in the area. We were one of the only families with South Asian heritage. And as I've grown up, I've watched the community grow around us. Now we have stores, there's a mosque, there's a temple.
Wow.
There's a whole community now, especially here in the Burlington area. And it actually has one of the biggest South Asian populations in the state.
That I did not know, but I did know that the population was pretty significant.
Yeah, I think when all the tech companies moved in, there was a lot of immigration at that time. I did my undergraduate at MIT, and I have a bachelor's of science there, and I have a master's from University of California, Berkeley in water policy. While I was in graduate school, a friend and I, we got very excited by this organization, Engineers Without Borders. And so we started a chapter, and then after we finished graduate school, we went on to start a nonprofit working on women and water. She was from Indonesia, so we started in Jakarta, working in slum communities by the river, so working with women and their families for safe water and a healthy world. Cool. And so that's something, nonprofits are something I've been very passionate about, and women and water are also issues that I care a lot about.
Everybody needs, a lot of people take water for granted. I mean, just recently in the news, Puerto Rico, like 94% of the population still does not have clean water.
Right. So it is a big issue, and women in most of the world, care of water is by women, and so I think actually trying to empower women through access to water is a really important thing that we can do.
But now the nonprofit that you started, is it still go? Is the chapter still going?
It's called Watson Action. It is still going in Indonesia. It's grown from a volunteer staff to a professional staff of about 9 or 10. Great. So kind of similar to Saheli, has sort of a similar trajectory. Anyhow, like Savitha, I also came back to Massachusetts, had kids. My husband and I live in Groton, and I also have been home for a little bit. And my children just started preschool this year. So I have a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old. And so now I've also joined up with Saheli.
Okay. Now, great. Thank you for coming. I love the stories.
Yeah.
What is Saheli exactly? What does it mean? It sounds like it is like a South Asian word.
Yes. Saheli means friend in Hindi. It's actually girlfriend in Hindi. So the organization itself, it's a nonprofit organization that works against domestic violence, specifically in the South Asian community.
Okay. Now
So go ahead. Yeah.
How does the problem of domestic violence compare South Asian community versus like the entire population? Does it tend to be a little higher?
It is a little higher because we come from a patriarchal family. So there's a significant amount of male dominance, just from the upbringing and the cultural background. So yeah.
Wow.
I'll give the stats because we did look into this.
Go ahead.
So
I told you I was going to go on tangents.
Yeah, there you go. So it is a little higher, but it's pretty common. 1 in 3 women here in America are going to experience domestic violence at some point in their lifetime. In the South Asian community, it's more like 40%.
Wow.
So it's it's a little bit higher. One of the things that I think are really unique to the South Asian community is that almost everyone grew up, 4 out of 5 South Asians grew up being hit in the home as kids,
Wow.
as sort of a normal form of punishment.
Okay.
That's
so
true.
both, spanking or, could be go a little further than
Slapping,
that.
yeah.
So just depending on the family.
Oh, okay.
Another one is, South Asian families are very tight. They're very close. So people, on a plus side, people do go to their family. South Asians are twice as likely to go to their family if they're facing domestic violence, to try to seek help.
Okay.
But there's a downside to that, because it also means keeping it in the family, which means that if you're in a hard situation and you're really being abused, we don't go to the police. So
okay.
typically,
so it's hard to get the resources available. Okay.
yeah. So usually South Asian women, very few of them will apply for, say, a restraining order. They won't necessarily want to call the police because of, it could be immigration status or sort of fears or just sort of cultural barriers.
Okay.
So there's this real emphasis on keeping it, in the family, trying to fix problems with the family, and, keeping the marriage together at all
okay.
costs. And sometimes the cost can be really high.
Wow.
There's actually a uniqueness about the domestic violence that South Asian families face, in that it's not just partner violence, there's also in-laws abuse that we
wow.
have.
Okay.
So I don't know if people have read enough stories about in-laws asking for dowry, which is like
right.
financial gifts that never end, and
Oh, wow.
so they abuse them, sometimes throw acid. There's acid attacks.
Yeah, I've heard the acid.
Right, and
That's
sometimes
kinda scary.
they pour kerosene and burn them. There's a lot of that sort of violence that does happen, but there's still in-laws abuse, even in the U.S., that we see in the South Asian community. So there is some uniqueness to the domestic violence.
Now, you had mentioned, keeping the marriage together. Is it always, or does domestic violence happen outside, like, in the dating relationship, or do you guys just kind of focus on a marital relationship?
There's not, I think the trend is changing now with the current generation, but when it was our turn, if you go back 20 years ago, there really wasn't a dating scene, because it was very arranged marriages.
Oh, okay.
So that abuse is, I don't think it's still that big in the South Asian community in terms of dating and the dating violence.
Now I've heard that some women are not really against, but they resist the arranged marriages. So that might cause family issues as well, because it's a non-cultural norm.
Right, in certain pockets, I guess. But the more educated the families are, they've come to accept the non-traditional marriages now. Yeah.
So how did I interrupted you. How was Saheli established, and when and why? And
Right. So Saheli was established in 1996. So it's been about 21 years. So a group of well-educated women, got together. They were friends in somebody's house and started talking about the growing number of domestic violence cases that are happening in the South Asian families.
Okay.
And
now, was it started here in the Boston area?
Saheli started here in the Boston area. And they realized that there weren't any resources out there that would deal with the issues that South Asian families faced, which is why they thought, well, there's nothing available there, so let's start our own. And that's how Saheli was born.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And what do they focus on? I mean,
so the mission of Saheli is to empower women and their families to live safe and healthy lives. It's simple, but then, there's so much of complexity that comes.
Exactly. I'm like, it sounds simple, but it's never that. So Saheli started in the Boston area.
It started in Burlington.
It started in Burlington. How cool is that?
Yeah.
Now, has it been around long enough to start chapters elsewhere? Is it growing, or is it kind of just
we work actually, we have volunteers and we have domestic violence advocates. Our office is here in Burlington, but actually we work across the whole state. So
Okay.
there is a big South Asian population in this area that we work with. There's also lots of folks in Boston. We
Okay.
have a domestic violence advocate down on the South Shore. We have also a growing population in the Worcester area and along Route 9. And so we have advocacy there as well. So it's growing in that sense. We also have a new outreach going into Nashua at this time.
Right.
Oh, cool.
So we are growing sort of organically along with the South Asian population, and we're trying to help word spread to that women can know about the resources that we offer.
Right. So Saheli is mainly for the South Asian community in Massachusetts.
Okay.
So there are similar sister organizations in other states. Like we
Okay.
have Saki in New York, we have Manavi in New Jersey.
Yeah.
Now, do you work or partner with these other?
In some ways,
like-minded?
we are actually starting to build those relationships.
Okay.
I will be in Chicago in November, and there is the sister organization is called Apnagar. So I'll be meeting the executive director
Oh, wow.
of Apnagar over there, and I think we've scheduled a meeting with Saki for next week
Yeah.
so that we could exchange ideas and collaborate.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and actually, it's interesting that a few nights ago, a friend of mine, she saw an article about Saheli on one of our South Asian online magazines, and she called me like late in the night, and she said, "I have a friend whose friend is homeless in California. She had 2 kids, and her husband had kind of thrown her out, and
Wow.
she didn't know what resources were available or if Saheli would be able to help." So then I connected her to Narika. Narika is another sister organization in San
okay.
Francisco,
Okay.
so that Narika would be able to help provide the resources and the services that Saheli offers for people in Massachusetts. The same thing over
Okay.
there in California. So it's very beneficial for us to work with our sister organizations.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, everybody knows someone.
Right.
So now you've mentioned South Asian. Can we just kind of clarify
What countries?
what countries or what area?
Do you want to take that?
Sure, I can take that.
Yeah, I know it wasn't in the cheat sheet.
Oh, no,
but-
we have it.
India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Nepal, Bhutan,
Maldives.
and the Maldives.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we cover all of those areas, and we have volunteers who speak most of the languages.
Okay, because I know India has a lot of different languages. and
24
dialects.
official languages, yeah.
Oh, is that all? So, when we talk about domestic violence, is it just the physical abuse, or is it also emotional, psychological abuse, or is it both? Do they go hand in hand?
So domestic violence is basically partner abuse. Where the
Okay.
partner has power and control over their intimate partner.
Okay.
So it doesn't have to be just physical. So
Okay.
there's economical, the psychological,
Okay.
sexual abuse, and immigration. The threats with immigration issues.
Oh, okay.
So all these fall under the domestic violence umbrella.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So we already talked about the prevalence. How mentioning immigration? How do you think immigration is affected or impacts the reporting rate?
So I don't know if we could pull up the power and control wheel for immigrants. If we get a chance to do
I'm
that.
not sure if Chris was able to get it done.
Done?
Oh, there it
Okay.
is.
Oh, there you go.
Yay! Thank you,
Yep.
Chris.
And now the other one. So this one actually shows you the different abuses that go into domestic violence. The
Okay.
intimidation, emotional abuse, isolation, name calling, using children, right?
Oh, pitting the children against
Each other,
parents.
right?
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
So if we can pull up the second power and control wheel, if he gets a
we'll
chance.
talk about that in a moment.
Yeah.
Right. So you will see that there's a lot of fear that's instilled in the spouse about
Oh, there we go.
immigration status. So I don't know if we can zoom it out a
No,
little bit.
That's it.
That's-
So you
So-
can't read it.
Right,
but-
right. So the
So
partner
sexual abuse,
that
economic abuse,
is
using
intimidation
children,
and using
threats.
citizenship or immigration privilege as a means of control. So
Okay.
their immigration status, inability to work, not being able to,
Okay. If
support
you leave
themselves
me, you won't be able to
independently.
get a job.
Right.
Okay.
So the spouses sometimes who come, most of the spouses who come in on an H-4 visa.
Okay.
And
Which
that
is
visa does not allow the spouse to work.
okay.
And the issue is that the partner has the power to cancel that visa status.
Oh.
So when they
Okay.
cancel it, the spouse ends up with illegal status, right?
Okay.
So they are, they will be deported because they can't stay here. They don't have a
Okay.
job because they couldn't work.
'Cause they can't
They're not
work.
independent. They're not financially independent enough. So that factor is there. And then, because we come from this close knit arranged marriage sort of family, when the girl gets married, the idea is that she is leaving home to make her home.
Right. Okay.
So it's frowned upon, and there's a huge social
So
stigma.
if she comes back, it's like you failed.
You failed. You cannot come, because then the parents and the family members have to face the social stigma in their circle.
Okay.
So they turn their back on
we
their
don't want-
own
yeah,
and their
okay.
own daughters. So where do they go? They have nowhere to turn,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
So these fears are the reason why the women don't come forward for
Okay.
reporting abuse.
Now.
They tolerate it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's scary.
You are really stuck in a situation
Yes.
like that.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, what would your advice be to someone who happens to be in that situation, an abusive relationship, and their immigration status is threatened? I mean, what are their options at that point?
Right. So I think when we went through the domestic violence training, we were fortunate enough to have a legal advocate who had expertise in immigration laws.
Okay.
She came and gave us a talk. Do you want to take that? Where she talked about the U visa.
Sure. There's some special visas available. There's one that's available specifically for cases like this where the spouse is facing domestic violence. There's a specific visa status that you can apply for if you are in danger and you're dependent on your spouse.
Okay.
And that's the U visa, I
That's
think,
the U visa.
that you can apply for.
And there's also the T visa. Isn't that the one where it's given to
That's for if
women
you're involved
of
in
human trafficking?
Right, if you're involved in any kind of human
Oh, wow.
trafficking situation.
So would human trafficking fall under the umbrella
No.
of domestic violence?
No,
Because
it
that
doesn't.
seems like a whole
It's
other.
it is a whole other thing.
Now,
That's
both of
another
these-
episode.
Right. Yeah.
Another series.
Right.
Anyway.
Both of these visas have been permitted, I think, by the Violence Against Women Act.
Okay.
Has made it possible for women who are in a situation of domestic violence where they can get away from an abusive partner but still stay in America, maybe be able to get a job and to have a future. Saheli also offers, we have some resources. We have a whole network of South Asian lawyers who are experienced with family law. We're experienced with
Okay, so,
immigration law.
Like family law, if you're pitting the child against,
Yep.
Right.
the two
And their
parents.
experience
custody
with
issues.
Okay.
their
Yeah.
experience also with the cycle of abuse, how it plays out in South Asian culture, and they offer free services to our clients. So that's one of the things that we offer as a service. We also our advocates are we have some very talented, very experienced women who have worked with our clients. They'll take them to the courts. They'll help them work through the process of getting a restraining order with the police, of working through a divorce, getting child custody, figuring out all of a sudden, woman is figuring out I have to make an income. How do I do that here in America?
Right.
So helping them figure out that process. We have classes available, everything from basic computer literacy. We also have a fund that's available for women who are looking to get some education. Maybe they'd like to actually go to college or go back to college and get some skills. That's another resource that we offer.
So the interesting thing about the U visa is all these years, the wait time was only like you would get the visa within 6 months. And now the wait for it is like almost 6 years. And
Wow.
that's because of the number of people who are able to come out and report the abuse.
But 6 years is a really
Is it-
long
well,
time.
it's a lot. It's a lot of people, right?
But I'm also, if you're in an abusive relationship, you might, worst case scenario, you might not have 6 years.
Right. Yeah, that's true. So it is a catch-22. There are so many women who are stuck in the middle. They've been abandoned, by their spouses with they're not financially sound enough to be able to go back, or they don't have their papers. Like if the spouse has not just canceled the visas but have taken off the immigration papers, and so you have no access to the documents.
Right.
What do? So these are the
Panic
kind of,
is a good thing.
yeah,
Well, no, it's not. But
it's not right.
now, as Nadia was saying, it's like this is how to get a job, how to go back to school, is there some kind of counseling to go into the cultural aspects?
Oh, yeah.
Because, here, this is how you go and
Right.
fill out a job
Right.
application and you have legal status to work here. But as you were mentioning earlier, there's the whole women become,
Right.
I don't want to say property, but they're,
Yeah. Ownership. Yes.
they're,
the
like-
spouses own them. kind of
Exactly.
thing, yeah. So Saheli is very unique
Okay.
in that way. It's the only DV organization that provides counseling. So the DV advocates are actually trained to be counselors, and our DV advocates are so dedicated, and they spend several hours with we call them survivors,
Okay.
and they meet them often, either in the office or somewhere in a public place, because some of them don't have transportation, so our advocates drive close to where they are.
Okay.
We just don't meet them in personal spaces for valid reasons, obvious
fair enough.
reasons. And they let them vent. They, allow them to talk. They
Okay.
counsel them about some critical things which are very important to their cases as they move forward. And one of them is anger management. How do you control yourself when he's hurting you or abusing you, or you're in an argument? How to stay calm?
Okay.
Because we
'Cause
have
that's true. They're still in that relationship.
Right.
They're not separate, so they're
Right.
still. Oh, okay.
because there could be something where if he is in that much control, where he would call the cops and say, well, she scratched me with a nail, and if the rest is emotional abuse, and she doesn't have any physical scars to show.
Oh, okay.
And when law enforcement enter a situation like that, they have to arrest somebody,
Right.
right? So sometimes they end up taking the victim or the
Right.
the
Okay.
survivor.
Yep.
So those sort of counseling, are offered by our DV
Okay.
advocates to teach them how to stay calm. Let him
Put
do
up
whatever
like that
he has to
emotional
do.
wall.
You just,
almost.
let's go through the safety plan, get your documentation together, make sure you have your immigration papers, your passport, your financial documents, if there's elderly people, parents involved, make sure they're safe, children are safe. So those sort of safety planning
Okay.
we go through, and then we figure out, do they need legal services? Do they need shelter? Do they need health services, whether it's
Okay.
physical or psychological? What are the pressing needs? And so we counsel them through that and
Okay.
literally handhold our clients,
Yeah.
because they're
It gets pretty complicated.
it is, yeah. They come here from a different country, and it's hard to make friends.
Okay, so you talked about, I'm like looking at my little list. You talked about the counseling. You touched upon the educational program. What about the helpline? Is that like the first line of defense?
Yeah.
Is
So we have a 24-hour toll-free helpline, 1-866-4 Saheli. I think it's over here,
Yeah.
and
hopefully it'll be on the screen at
on
some
the
point.
screen, yeah, at some point. So
Yeah.
a lot of the clients can call us. Yeah, they can call us at any time.
Okay.
If somebody's not in the office, leave a message, and an advocate will get back to them within 24 hours.
Okay.
That's usually the first
The first.
point of contact, or the
Okay.
first way, or the most common way that clients reach us.
Okay.
Yeah. There are other ways they can get to us. Friends of friends, they
Okay.
refer them to us via email, info@saheliboston.org.
Okay.
What else do we use?
Now, you
Those are
mentioned
the main ones.
outreach a little while ago.
Right.
So, what kinds of outreach do you do? I mean, is it education, or is it just awareness that you're there and that you can help?
I think it's all.
Yep, we do a little of both. I'll tell you, we have some pretty cool workshops coming up
Do
right here
tell.
in Burlington. So one, I've actually been attending myself. We're doing a whole series on parenting workshops, all about healthy parenting, everything starting from care of yourself. And we have a wonderful pediatrician, Dr. Maya Raghavan she's from the BU Medical School, and so she's been taking us through. First, how do you care for yourself? How do you can use meditation as a parent and use things to sort of calm yourself down if you're angry with your kids. Our next one is going to be on positive discipline, and that's coming up on.
I need to take.
Yeah. When is that's
November 2nd.
That's going to be right here in Beacon Village. I think
Burlington.
Yep, in Burlington, and that starts I think at 9:30, right at their clubhouse. So
Oh,
moms,
cool.
come on out if you want to learn about that. We also do in Watertown. We have a college readiness program. And this is a
okay.
school actually had contacted us. They have a large population of young women from Pakistan who their parents are sending them home at age 16 and 17 to get married. And so one of the things we have in this program is we're sort of encouraging being prepared for college, taking some of the girls, to visit local area colleges and really trying to encourage staying in school and getting an education. So that's another one. We also have some really fun, we also do outreach to the whole South
Right.
Asian community.
Yeah. So especially this month, this season is the South Asians' very popular festival called Diwali.
Okay.
It's called the Festival of Lights. So several South Asian community organizations have celebratory events planned across the state, and we have outreach tables at these events
Okay.
so that we can talk to the community. I know it's a celebratory environment, but there might still be somebody who's looking for help, that we
Yeah.
haven't reached.
They're putting on their happy face.
Right, but there is
behind
something,
that,
yeah.
Okay.
So we talk to the community members and about what Saheli does, and those nice little bands that we have over there. Yeah.
Got the wristbands.
So that has actually the
You're not looking at
Saheli's. He's not there you go.
Yeah.
So that has
A lovely
Saheli's.
shade of green that you do
Yes.
not want to wear in front of a chroma key green screen because you disappear. Thank you. Okay.
So that has Saheli's,
it's got the phone number on it?
toll-free number on
yeah.
it.
Yeah.
It's and it
Safe,
has the motto
healthy, empowered.
Yeah. So we believe in that mission. So we, give those so that they have it handy, and we are making little pocket booklets that is the size of a credit card that will have all the information
Okay.
in it that the women will have handy, which will be the size of the
Okay.
credit card, and they
You
can
just slide it
easily
in,
right
okay.
into the
In the
pocketbooks.
wallet
Right. So we're doing those sort of outreaches. We also have the State House has invited us for
Wow.
DV Day, Domestic Violence Day.
Okay.
They have this event next Tuesday, October
Okay.
17th, for us to set up table. There's going to be the senator and representatives over there who will speak on the grand
Okay.
staircase. So I think that's going to be a fun event that we will be
Yeah.
attending and be able to socialize with and partner with the other domestic violence organizations in Massachusetts.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, and so that because we need that bond because we exchange
well, plus,
services.
I mean, if someone is in a domestic violence situation, they might not know of anybody else. They might come to you, and
Right.
you're like, yeah, but this other organization might be
Yes.
able to help you more,
Absolutely.
or somebody might not, somebody from a South Asian country
Right.
might not know of Saheli,
Saheli.
and the cultural deviations
Right.
from
Yeah.
that might not be around.
And I think there's a very interesting one right here in Burlington that we are having on Sunday.
tell.
Yeah, there's going to be a tree lighting for Diwali.
okay.
So they're gonna there's the gazebo that
Yeah.
they have in the common, and there's going to be I think some dance. There's going to
Cool.
be the Mendi, the henna painting. If that's something you want to try.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's going to be we're
lot
going to
of
have a
fun
table, but
activities.
there's going to be a lot of fun
Okay.
stuff for everyone to come and celebrate Diwali. So
Neat.
Yeah. So we are trying to get out there, get Saheli's word out there and reach out to every possible South Asian organization so that they can in turn address, or spread the word about Saheli to their little community members so that, our goal is finally to reach all
Right.
South Asian families in Massachusetts so that we can serve, and help the people who are
Now,
in need.
As we're talking,
Mm-hmm.
I'm starting to have like this dialogue in my head almost that you are trying to help women who are in abusive situations.
Yes.
However, in the beginning of our conversation, you mentioned that it was kind of like a taboo subject
It is.
to talk about. So have you, or has Saheli received resistance at any of these events where you've set up a table?
Oh, no. The community has been extremely supportive. The community organizations have been very supportive.
Okay.
But the people who have objections, who feels like there is a stigma attached to it, are probably not the ones who are approaching us.
Okay.
So they're not in the forefront. But as far as community organizations who we are asking to partner with, they have been very welcoming.
Okay, because I was just like, wait, I mean, you have like a double.
Yeah, you have to
Negativity to
understand.
overcome.
Right. So those who are still
Okay.
in these sort of abusive relationships in their homes, when the partner hears about this, they will make sure that the spouse does not approach Saheli,
Okay.
right? So
That's
that
come on over here.
right, yeah.
Okay.
So those sort of things still exist. So
Okay.
we are trying to push,
Okay. Now you mentioned the Diwali. Did I pronounce that right?
Diwali, yeah.
Diwali. You've also mentioned some of the other outreach activities. You have a big party coming up in December.
Yes.
Tell me more about that.
So this is the gala.
Okay.
I think if we can put that up
There's
on the
also another
screen.
slide on
There's
the
a slide
screen.
about
Yeah.
it.
But just tell me about it too.
So it's called Nirbhaya. Nirbhaya means fearless, basically.
Fearless.
Fearless, yeah.
Okay.
So this is Saheli's main fundraising gala. We have it every other year.
Okay.
And this year it's on December 8th at the
Okay.
Woburn Hilton Hotel at 6 p.m. We have a great number of events scheduled in the program.
Okay.
It opens up with traditional Indian dance performance by some of the very popular Indian dancers in our community. We also have an Empower Walk, which I'm coordinating. I'm so honored to coordinate that. The Empower Walk is a walk that our survivors take while we talk about the story that
Okay.
about their story and what they've gone through and how they've come out and where they are now. We will be debuting a domestic violence video, which we actually created in this studio,
Which
not
is
too
where I
long
met you
ago.
guys. I'm like, ooh,
Yes,
I've never
that's
heard of that
exactly
organ. That
right.
sounds pretty cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that will debut. It has no words, but it's an extremely powerful video. And it talks about all the issues that the South Asian families experience under the domestic violence umbrella.
Okay.
And then we are having a pledge drive.
Okay.
Our goal this year is to raise $100,000 from this event. Last time in 2015 at the gala, we Our goal was 75,000 and we exceeded it
Excellent.
and hit 80,000. So we are hoping that with this fundraiser, we will be able to extend our services, because all the services that we provide to our clients are free of cost.
Oh, okay.
But somebody has to pay
And
the
some
bills.
of the lawyer fees.
Right.
Yeah.
So, so we are hoping that with this fundraiser, we will be able to reach more communities, more counties, I should say, within the state in the South Asian community. So, the tickets and the information about Nirbhaya is on the website.
Okay.
People can buy individual tickets. They can bring their friends and make an evening out of it. You dress up nicely.
Ooh.
There's a DJ, and then the
Okay.
dancing goes into the night. We have delicious food.
Is it all like Indian cuisine?
It is Indian cuisine, and it's very popular. A lot of people, even
seriously.
non-South Asians love it. So we're looking forward to it.
Because it has flavor.
Absolutely. And we are looking for sponsorships. I think we are lacking corporate sponsorships.
Okay.
There are plenty of IT corporations and other corporations, major corporations around Burlington and Woburn area, and we would love it if we get corporate sponsorship for the gala. If you can't come to the event, you can donate any amount. Nothing is small. And we actually have a list of what your donation gives, in terms of the service, so that you will know exactly where that money is going.
Neat.
So yeah, we are very excited to have Nirbhaya.
Wow.
Looking forward to it.
Now, in addition to the gala, do you also do you apply for grants or
Yes.
anything?
Yeah, we definitely do, and we've gotten some great support from Harvard Pilgrim, from the Lenny Zachem Foundation, also from Lay Hospital and Brandeis University. So we're very thankful. They're helping us, fund some of these workshops that we're doing and some of our outreach that we do. But we also this year are very fortunate to have gotten a state level grant, which many of the other domestic violence agencies have. And actually, Saheli is a little bit unusual in that we've been run for most of the last 21 years by volunteers, and then what we've been able to fundraise from our community. But now, finally, this year, we actually have some domestic violence funds coming from the state, which is going to provide a lot of stability for us going forward.
Great.
So that's great, and it's a really
So
shows.
it's like a recurring.
Yeah. So we've really developed sort of our footprint in the community and our
Excellent.
relationship to the domestic violence organizations, where we can be a part of that. We're also hoping to get, we've recently applied for federal funds. The Violence Against Women Act provides funds for domestic violence. And so we're hoping, if we get those, to work with the Burlington Police Department and training them specifically on sort of the cultural issues that come up with abuse in the South Asian community, which they have requested. And then as that goes, we would like to work with many of the other police departments in the area.
Oh, wow. You got a lot planned. So what do you do in your spare time? Kidding.
We're
Now-
still trying to figure that out.
What do you do between 2 and 4 in the morning is what my parents always used to say. I'm like, sleep. Backing up a little bit, when we were talking about different ways of abuse, we talked about children being manipulated or dragged into the situation. And then one of the reasons why leaving. Now, if a woman were to leave a domestic violence situation and bring her children with her, is there, I'm just thinking of, amicable separations and divorces where the husband will pay child support. Is that even an option?
Yeah, it is. As the advocates work with the clients, we take them for legal advice, and the attorneys actually address these issues. There's joint custody, there's custody, sole custody.
Because I'm just wondering, the cultural barrier versus like everything.
Well, I think once they come out of it, that cultural barrier starts to
Then
dissolve.
it's like, all right,
too,
fine.
right?
Yeah, okay.
Right. So,
I don't mean to be like harping on that.
no,
It just,
but it is the truth. That's why Saheli is here, right? Because there is a major issue that we are facing in our community. So yeah, there is enough resources that we have that
Okay.
deals with child custody, and our advocates fight long and hard to make sure that their clients get, or the survivors get what they need, from the spouses.
how do you get advocates? I mean,
That's a tough one. We don't seem to, it's not a lucrative job. you know, it can burn you out. It's mentally
Yeah.
taxing. So there's not that many DV advocates who can deal with the South Asian community. That's why several of our advocates have been with Saheli volunteering
okay.
for 15 years.
Wow.
Some of them right from when it started, and they're very invested in it. To
Okay.
bring in more people is a little challenging.
Because I'm also thinking like the legal advice. I mean, how do you recruit new lawyers to come in and help you?
I think the lawyers actually have been pretty enthusiastic about it. There's a South Asian Bar Association, and so we have several, I think, volunteers who go there and are involved every year. And I think a lot of people, everyone wants to give back to the community. And even though, even though South Asians, maybe we don't like to talk about abuse, we sort of want to keep it quiet. It still happens, and we see it, and I think there are a lot of amazing people who want to make a difference and who want to create a world where we don't have this kind of violence for anybody.
Right.
So that's, I think, the passion that's in Saheli is something that drew me to the organization. I think Savitha feels a lot the same way.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the things that has helped us a lot with our volunteers.
Right. But there's also, from the state, there is legal services that are offered free to the clients of all the domestic violence organizations. So yeah, there's a lot of state-funded programs.
So if someone were in a situation, they could come to you and you'd be able to
take them
point
to
them
these
in the
places,
right direction,
or
say,
take
check this
them,
out,
actually.
or physically take them. Oh, wow.
Because many of them don't have transportation, right? They
Okay.
don't know how to drive, or the control has been so much that they've not been given that freedom, right, to get that driver's license or something like that. So our DV advocates.
Well, I'm also forgetting that it's like a physical space. I'm thinking,
It
oh yeah,
is.
log onto this log
No.
online and print this out.
No, several
physical space.
Right.
Okay.
Several of our survivors are, not well versed in English, so they have language barriers. That's why we have interpretation services that are offered, and several of our DV advocates. Among all of us, we cover about 10, 12 languages.
Wow.
In the South Asian space of all those countries that we cover. And I think coming from India, several of us do speak more than one language, right? So that kind of does help.
I was kind of wondering that. I'm like, should I ask?
Yeah.
Now I'm looking at some of the other resources that you provide. I mean, let's just kind of review those again. Interpretation and translation assistance.
Yeah.
Now, we mentioned the multiple countries.
Right.
So what would I understand the interpretation
scenario.
part, but what would the translation part involve?
So basically, I think they kind of play in together.
Okay.
So when there is some sort of a DV case that has come up, and there is a South Asian woman, say, in the police station, and the police officers don't understand what the person is saying, right? And how do you service them? How do you provide what they're looking for? So then they call Saheli.
Okay.
When
So
we
wait,
have,
what's the difference between interpretation and translation?
so interpretation, sometimes if you're not fluent in the language, you can have, a little bit of English, which not everybody can understand what the person is saying when you have a heavy accent. But translation is where, you probably have,
Oh, okay.
you only speak
Like
in a South Asian
Completely
language.
okay.
Right, yeah. So something like that.
As you started answering that, I'm like, wait a minute, what is the difference? And the safety planning you talked about.
Yes.
you know, in how they can protect themselves while still in
Right.
that relationship, so the spouse doesn't turn it
Right.
against them and turns them
You
into
need
the aggressor.
time, right? You need time, right? Sometimes, so if your life is not at risk, if if one of your family members' life is not at risk, obviously, if that threat
That's
is
a
there,
different
call
story.
911. But if it's not, and if you can wait, right?
Okay.
Wait to gather the documents, which is very critical. Gather the financial documents, your immigration documents, anything that has to do with your children, their birth certificates, right? And any of the elderly papers, your health information, all those things you have to gather so that when you leave, you will have the information that you need and the documentation that you need.
And
so
you'll
that
tell them, make sure you have
this,
and
Yeah,
this.
that's part of our counseling process.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm looking at, counseling. We've talked about
Right.
that. Just kind of, where do I go from here?
Right. Yeah.
And the educational programs
Right.
you had mentioned, and that was more of the
What we do for the clients themselves.
right. Okay.
We also are into educating the community. So this grant, the VAVA grant, the Voices Against Violence, right? The one that we just applied for. We are hoping to get that grant. I think we will know about it early next year. If that grant comes through, the first thing we have on our list is to train the Burlington Police Department and the first responders so that they will know what to do when we have a domestic violence situation in a South Asian family, and which might
Because
have
they do have a really amazing domestic
Yeah,
violence.
and they actually came to us asking us to
train
do
them.
this with them.
Oh,
So
right.
yeah,
Okay.
So they've been an amazing partner, working with Saheli for many years, and they have a wonderful coordinator who we have a good relationship with. Our advocates work with her a lot.
Right.
So
Because Anne Marie Brown, who
Right.
yeah,
runs the program over
program.
there, she was on the show back in the first, like one of the single-digit episodes, I think. So, but yeah,
Yeah.
she is totally amazing.
Right. So they requested that we do the training so that they would understand how to handle some of the unique situations
Okay.
that our community faces, and then you give them the resources and let them know how to reach Saheli.
Oh,
right.
okay.
Yeah.
And what is, I'm looking, economic empowerment.
So economic empowerment, this is again the area where, if a woman's in a situation where, or someone's situation where their partner is the person with the, who is the one there for their work visa,
With the income,
is the
yes.
one making the income. Often in the
And the
traditional
health
culture
insurance
is in charge of all the bank accounts, and maybe is involved. There's some sort of financial abuse where. So, you might have a situation where someone does not have any experience dealing with their own finances, being able to handle a bank account, being able to, get money in the first place to get away. So we have a crisis fund for a right-away emergency that our advocates are empowered to help give our survivors. And then beyond that, we also have worked with various folks on financial literacy. So understanding how to navigate bank accounts, understanding, how to develop savings plans, sort of how to understand, the different financial arrangements here in America.
Okay. And especially if kids are involved, you have to worry about college tuition
Tuition.
at some point.
Right.
Right.
That just kind of scares me.
So.
Okay. I don't even think we talked about this. Again, you thought I was going to go in order. Huh?
It's been wonderful.
we talked about like the first steps of, calling Saheli
Right.
and say, okay. And we also talked briefly about if they had time, if their life was not endangered. What happens if their life
Is in danger.
is in danger?
So if it's not at that point where you have to call 911, but
Okay.
they've already left, let's say they've left home
Okay.
and they have nowhere to go, and they
he's
call.
threatening me. That's
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
So there's this organization called SafeLink that has this network of shelters that the entire state of Massachusetts and all the DV organizations use to place their clients in the shelters. So if they do not have a friend where they can take temporary residence
If they don't have their own safety net.
right,
Okay.
then we put them, in a shelter.
Oh,
And apparently, this is something that I learned during our DV training, is the shelters are never going to be near their original residence. It is in an unknown location.
Okay.
And even the advocates are not allowed to drop the clients off at the shelters because nobody should know.
Nobody's got to know
where
it's a shelter.
they are. Yeah.
Okay. And they don't want to,
Right.
let them know it is a shelter.
Right. So there are DV advocates at the shelter who also,
okay.
work with them and provide them the necessary resources. And if there are kids involved, they can go to schools where they should go around the neighborhood, I guess.
Oh, okay.
So till we find the legal channels to bring them back, or do that educational program.
So you can actually start doing your job and pick up all
now that we know they're safe.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So we are almost out of time. So my last question is, where would you like to see your organization in 5 years?
I think we have like a short-term goal and then a long-term goal.
Okay.
Saheli's been a volunteer organization for 21 years.
Right.
So we've just started transitioning into a staff-based organization.
Okay.
So, I think most of our clients are in the Middlesex County, and we do have clients who have been in Quincy and spread out, but the concentration has been over here.
Okay.
And one of our goals is to reach out to the rest of the counties in Massachusetts.
Okay.
The ultimate goal is to make sure Saheli is well known to every household in the South Asian community. And I guess what Nadia's vision is.
My dream is sort of, a world without violence. That's really what
That's
drew me
basically
into
what it
Saheli,
is.
and that we could talk about this issue in the South Asian community, and we could really say, hey, this is not okay. We need to have healthy relationships, however they are.
Right.
Okay.
A world without violence.
Exactly.
That's basically what it is.
Well, thank you very much. We are out of time. I really, really enjoyed our conversation.
Thank you.
So thank you for enlightening me and educating me, and I hope everyone at home enjoyed our conversation as much as I did.
Thank you for having us on the show.
And giving us a platform to talk about Saheli.
All right. So thank you very much for tuning in this evening. I hope you have a wonderful week, and I will see you around town. Good night.
That's awesome.